Spirited Away, the highest grossing Japanese movie of all time, the highest ranked animated film, I think, of all time too, on different record boards and stuff. It's way up there. It's a lot of people's favorites, and it's going to be John's first time watching it. So we're going to discuss it, have some fun conversations, and have an extended long version in our podcast.
Everyone, welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. We're going to be talking about Spirited Away, which I have never seen before. It's a movie that I've been being told about for about 12 years, if not longer. All my students over the years, including current ones, are like, hey, you need to watch this movie. And so finally, we got the Princess Mononoke a couple weeks ago. If you haven't seen that one, check that out. That's my first time seeing that as well. And now we're on to Spirited Away, a really fun ride, and one that Nick's been telling me to watch for a while now as well.
Yes, so this came out right after Princess Mononoke. He wanted to retire right after Princess Mononoke. He went on vacation, and then he decided to make this movie. Or the girl Sin, who the character is based off of, forgive me if I get the names wrong. It was one of the employees' daughters is what inspired the character. So we're gonna just go into it. There's a lot of cool moments in this movie, a lot of beautiful moments in this movie too. It's not over the top. It's like perfect when it comes to the right amount of action and quiet space. So, John, first, your thoughts, man. What do you think?
Yeah, it's very much like we kind of talked about with Princess Mononoke, where it's a little bit more subdued. It's not in your face like the later Avengers films are every second. It gives you time to have things develop. It reminded me of a lot of different movies, and all movies that I really like. And so I imagine that's a really good sign. So I'm going to be going through some of those in my notes on things that I really liked about it. But yeah, I mean, from the get-go, one thing that struck me, which was the same on the previous movie, is the music and sound design in these movies is very, very good. And again, to me, if the music isn't there in a film, it brings down the experience a lot. And the music and the sound design was really, really good in this all the way through.
So John Lasseter from Pixar really pushed this movie. He really wanted to do it. He wanted Disney to be the distributor overseas for all this stuff because he was such a big fan of Miyazaki's work. And what was so cool was it got pushed and it got nominated for Best Animated Feature and it won. How cool is that? It's the first time an anime won, like the first Japanese animated movie that won an Academy Award. It's such a great film. Sometimes you think when Leonardo DiCaprio finally won, people were like, was it his best? But they're like, well, he just deserves one because he's so talented or something like that. But Spirited Away also held the first 100% on Rotten Tomatoes when it came out. But then, critics came and they got lowered. But it was like the first one. So it's just like, it's a great movie.
Yeah. Nick asked me the very interesting question, which I hadn't even thought about because I literally just finished watching this maybe half an hour ago, was, so did you like that or Princess Mononoke more? I was like, gosh, they're way different movies. I mean, I was having a hard time giving an answer for that. And like Nick was saying, when Leonardo DiCaprio finally won an Academy Award, was that his best work? Probably not. When Denzel Washington finally won an Academy Award, one of my favorite actors, was it his best role ever in Training Day? He played a good role, but so it's interesting. Is this the best Miyazaki movie, or is it the best anime even up to that point? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of them to know, but it definitely was a historical film as far as setting that bar and pushing forward that medium in the other culture.
And the attention to detail in the animation is just incredible. I mean, every little moment to even tapping her shoe or tapping her toe after she puts on her shoe, just all those little moments. And the bathhouse scene is just the weight and the timing when it comes to pulling things and just the whole, it's just beautiful. The way she's even running and freaking out and then she slams into it's just, there's so many good comical moments.
I wrote down early on, I love how they depict a young girl freaking out, especially near the beginning. She's like her.
Yeah.
Obviously they're exaggerated because it's animation, but it very much reminded me of what kids when they freak out in real life. They captured that quality a lot. A lot of times you try and depict young children, but especially when it's a adult voice actor trying to sound like a kid, or, you're obviously not a kid anymore when you're an animator, trying to depict and get that across can be difficult. But I feel like they absolutely did. It was hilarious watching her freak out at everything.
And he does such a good job. So we just did a Princess Mononoke one where John watched it for the first time and we talked about it. We broke it down, the animation and stuff. But one thing I didn't talk about, because I knew we were going to talk about Spirited Away, and I think it's a little bit more present in Spirited Away than Princess Mononoke. He calls it the ma. It's the silence before the storm, or the calm before the storm, or the sound before a clap. It's just those quiet moments. And like one of the best examples of it, and there's a lot in this movie, just quiet moments where stuff happens is, after the first night, she wakes up and she goes to go find her parents with Haku and, the bridge. And that's when you see no face on the bridge. And it really doesn't have a lot to progress the story. And it's something that might have just been a jump cut where she wakes up and it jump cuts to, oh, she's at the farm with the pigs. But you get this whole beautiful sequence of her walking through the bathhouse and putting on her shoes, going off the side and going to, it's just like you get these amazing landscapes. And then the moment where she has to eat food, or she's eating food, because it's just, and there's like the tears are coming, but it's just like very calm, silent moments that just really build the characters. And it's just so good because then that like preps you for the rest of the story. It's like, okay, she has to get her parents back. It's like you kind of get, certain characters that are established and go, it's like the calm before the storm. And it's just so beautiful. It's so good.
And you know what? It's something that's definitely worth mentioning and talking about, because I feel like audiences at this point, if they see something happening on screen, they know it's important, and it's almost a tip off that this is probably a cause for something. Whereas every now and then you get directors and filmmakers that put in elements just to add to the world and add to the pacing. And again, I think we talked about this in Princess Mononoke, but I feel like Quentin Tarantino does it really well. He can get away with it because he's such a prolific filmmaker, but he'll have shots that just go on a long time without cutting. And then especially older movies like The Godfather and Lawrence of Arabia, like classic movies, they'll have scenes go on far longer than you would get, I would say, in modern times, but it's to the benefit of the scene and how it plays out. And you're right. Like if you think about what's effective, efficient filmmaking, you would have her cut. She's going to bed. You would just have her, at the barn or whatever, looking at her parents and stuff the next day. They totally could have done that. That wouldn't have detracted from the story, but you'd have missed out on all these beautiful scenes. But that really just added to the beauty of it. And so did it add to the story? No, but did it add to the world? Like you said, it definitely did. And those things, I've only seen 2 Miyazaki films so far, but in both of those, they've done that very well so far. Yeah, for sure.
And then like the other moment too is like you have the big action sequence, right? And then like No Face is destroying the place, like chasing after her and everything. And then finally they get on the train track or whatever and they're walking down, and then you have just the calm of them sitting together. You know what I mean? Like just sitting there and just that basic thing before you get to like the final act kind of thing. But it's just like a place for you to breathe. You know what I mean? And we need those moments to breathe. If it's just action packed the whole time, you're like, I have to get my breath. There's so much going on. You know what I mean? It's nice to just be able to breathe and settle in and take in the moment. Yeah. And it's so funny too, because when people reference this movie, that image of them sitting there is so iconic. Like you see that everywhere.
That's the one that I saw. Yeah.
Think about it though. That's the place where everyone rests and everything. They probably really think that scene's very peaceful because it's right after a very stressful, action-packed scene. Then it's just like peace, inner peace.
and it's where you get to absorb who the characters are, where they're going, and it's important moments that. I mean, some movies, their whole gimmick is it's nonstop action. Like these god awful movies with Jason Statham, was it Crank, right? He has to stay moving the whole time or he's going to die. It's like, that's fun for about 15 minutes. And then you're like, all right, we're not getting any as an audience, especially like in horror games and things like that, you need to give them rest in between in order for the next sequence to actually hit and have any dramatic impact. Because otherwise you come be desensitized to it, And, this movie did it really well, but it's funny, like you said, those are the moments that people tend to remember the most because I think it's just more about the characters than the action that's happening.
Okay, so you know what? In the podcast, I'm just dropping this right here. Just so we're going to go over fun little tidbits that he threw in there, that there's like a Pixar reference in the movie. And we're going to go over some other things like what is No Face technically and like what he's designed after. We're not going to drop it here in the video, but we're going to talk about some more visual stuff. But we're going to be doing a podcast where I'm giving John so much like boom, boom, boom. So just make sure to come over to our podcast. It's going to be awesome. It's so much fun. But I just wanted to mention another sequence, John. The bathhouse sequence, like when the spirit of the lake or river comes in and he's like all dirty and globbing, everyone's like, oh, it's like when they're like trying to hold their breath or whatever.
I just love that like her all from head to toe or from toe to head, you can see like all of her hair stands up. It's just hilarious. It's like we were taking our dog for a walk the other day, and I forgot this actually happens. And another dog ran out of someone's garage and ran up to our dog, and all of his hair on his back just stood up because he was at attention and ready to fight. And I'm like, I looked at my dog. I'm like, wow, I'm not used to seeing that, but it's kind of the same thing that they did here, but it was with their smell. They're like, oh, she's so like, good. Put your hands down. You're going to insult our guest. She's like, oh.
So good.
Funny.
So good. And then, so this was inspired from when he actually cleaned up a river once. And
really?
And then when he cleaned up the river, there was a bike and they had to use a rope to pull the bike out. So he wanted to implement the story into the scene.
That's hilarious.
And it's so cool.
Because I was watching, I'm like, what the hell is the bike all about? Oh, I see a bike. All right, keep pulling. It's like, is they going to explain that? But that's funny. It's a little bit of his life that he put in there. That's cool.
And it's probably one of my favorite sequences. So everything in this movie, every little dust ball, every dust ball is hand drawn. It's not duplicated at all.
Wow.
Even the characters in the background, they're all hand drawn, all separate characters, no duplications or loops or anything like that. It's just, they went all out in this movie when it comes to the animation
moments
and stuff like that.
Are slower paced. So those moments that are slower paced, those add to the story. Do you think them hand animating every single character in the background was necessary? Or do you think that's an area they could have cut corners and not have it affect the film in any way, shape, or form? Because I'm not sitting there looking at the background and saying, are all those people unique and animated uniquely?
That's not the Miyazaki way.
The Miyazaki way saves
you gotta do everything the right way.
I guess.
There's no cheating in a Miyazaki movie. No, it's kidding. But it's just,
well, and I guess at this point, after Princess Mononoke did well, that he probably had a budget.
And Disney, I think, was
that?
helping it too, and all that stuff.
Oh,
so.
were they helping fund it? Oh, I didn't know
I think
that.
it was also the first time it was like digitally converted at the end or something like that.
Okay.
You know, because like the other one, I think was all hand cells. Where I think this was digital. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure this was digital.
When was this made?
2005.
I mean, this would have been
2007, 2005.
This would have been
2001. 2001, I think.
Yeah, because I think they were doing a little bit of that even in Lion King, I think, and that was way before then. So by that point, they should have been doing some stuff digitally.
But the water sequence is so just the way the water's animated and they like pull it down it was so beautiful. And the way like I mean every frame in this movie is just so beautiful, just like Princess Mononoke. It's just so beautiful, like the way the animation is and the movement and everything. And John, that was my favorite sequence of the movie. What was yours?
You know what? I had, what was it? No Face is his name, right?
Yes, No Face.
No Face. I thought he was. Face. I've given him name the faceless one. Nope. It wasn't that he was such an amazing character, and he was, but it's since I had seen him next to the girl so often in all the posters and pictures I'd seen over the years when students would tell me about it, I was like, dude, what's the guy with the mask? What's this going on? And it was just, I mean, my favorite moment with No Face was when they were sitting down with the good witch. It's like, it's like this Wizard of Oz sitting down with the good witch, and he has this little cup of tea and he's going to drink it, but it's like going into his chest because that's where his mouth is. And then he cuts a piece of cake and then you think it's going to go like that, but it's like, it's just eats it there. And I almost had to put it back because I was like, oh, he's eating and drinking. Is he actually, are they showing him eating it through his mask? Or like I put back, I'm like, oh, it's hilarious. This is so, the focus is not on that character at that moment, but they thought how funny it would be to have him, eating and drinking that way. Little things like that were really, really fun, I think.
Yeah.
And the witch is just such a wonderful, fun design. Her proportions are all over the place, but it made her such a memorable character.
Yeah.
And I loved the shading and the highlights when you got in close was all there, which is really impressive. And honestly, if you look at all the wrinkles and creases and stuff, it looks like in the old Hobbit animated film, when you get really up close, you see that as well. And then I had to remember the Studio Ghibli, a lot of them came from the company that worked on The Hobbit and then went there. And so I think it's one of the reasons I liked it too, is it reminded me of The Hobbit as far as like the wrinkles and the perfections and all that.
Yeah.
So this was higher budget, obviously, though. But yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you know what the budget was for this?
No idea, but I know it's the highest grossing movie of all time in Japan. All time, all live action, all American films that aired there. This is the highest grossing movie, and I think it still holds to this date as the highest grossing film. And I think it was like 33 million yen.
Because there is some very good Japanese films out there. I mean, they've made some really cool films, and obviously some of their more famous ones that I've seen that are popping into mind are much older films that time based aren't going to be the same money. But it was definitely a good film. Now let me ask you, Nick, because you were asking me, is this your favorite Miyazaki film or Studio Ghibli film?
It's up there. I have 3. And my 3 top ones are Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, and Howl's Moving Castle. So
which is going to be next for us because Nick's been telling me about this. I've heard it a couple other times. So if you guys like this episode, whether it's a podcast or this episode or whatever else, we're going to be doing that one next, which should be pretty fun.
Those are like my 3 favorite. Afterwards, I can kind of pick and choose and rearrange and stuff. But those 3 are always my top. I don't know. I kind of switch which one's my favorite at the time kind of thing. But I think currently right now, because I've been watching a lot with my wife, is Howl's Moving Castle. And it's so good. I'm not going to say anything because I'm not going to spoil it for John.
Yeah.
But guys, we're going to continue this Spirited Away conversation as a podcast. It's going to be so awesome. We're going to be breaking down a lot of the film and fun facts and stuff like that. So follow us over to AsArt either on Apple and Spotify, and we're on Audible now too.
And of course, you can check out AsArt.space for all the links to our video content and our audio content and anything else we end up posting there. There's a lot of different stuff we're expanding out there. This podcast is going to be fun because I'm going to be talking about the notes I took and the parallels that I saw between other movies I really like. And Miyazaki, at least from Nick was telling me, he likes to borrow from all kinds of different cultures, cinema and other mediums and things like that. So it should be a really fun conversation. Thank you very much for joining us on this one, and we'll see you on the next AsArt.